What is happening, Magnus sites? You see the title. You know, people were asking me, I think in the comments, like, was it better than Borderlands? You know, I think part of me actually did enjoy it more than Borderlands. So, yeah, in certain ways. So, they're probably both really on the same level. You know, the ending fight was good. You know, had some interesting kills and stuff, but I've had time to have it marinate on my brain. You know, they're both going to be jockeying for position of worst movie of the year so far. Okay. Ready?
You know, every once in a while I get an attack of the galloping crazies and almost manage to convince myself that remakes can be a good idea. Cape Fear, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Fly, and Battlestar Galactica were all big improvements over the originals, taking great concepts.
The only thing I didn't see was Battlestar Galactica.
That were once limited by technology, budget, or restrictive censorship, and producing much better realizations of the original artistic vision. That's nice and everything, but here's the thing. I would happily trade all of those just to wipe 2024's The Crow from my brain and pretend that it never existed. That film was 2 solid hours of pointless, boring, dreary, bleak, unimaginative, unlikable, self-inflicted misery. A completely soulless, corporatized modern-day rehash that makes a mockery of the source material, fails to understand.
You know, I thought it was weird that he could feel pain in this. The original Crow movie, he couldn't feel pain, or at least, I mean, look, in the beginning, you know, he gets the power, he does the whole, this famous free fall scene. I love that part. And he's about to get 10-10. Okay, he free falls right off of the building, lands on the concrete. If you pause it, though, when he lands, you can see him landing on a mat. You can see actually indentation. But anyway. And he laughs. But then later, there are certain parts, kind of like when he's running from the cops and certain, like, fights he had. Like, it's like he can feel certain pain. It's not consistent. You know what I mean? But anyway, I showed it to Scarlo yesterday, and she liked it more than she liked this one. I showed her the original.
And any of the themes or characters that made it so iconic, and completely fails to recapture the magic of the 1994 original. In short, it's a perfect example of all of the most depressing tendencies of modern remakes, and a solid contender for the worst movie of the year.
94. That was a year before I graduated. I was a junior in high school.
Anyway, let's get the plot summary over with so that we can all get the hell out of here. The movie begins not with Eric Draven,
right there. By the way, I meant to talk about that.
The movie begins not...
Okay, so this right here, well, the drinker always does spoilers, so spoiler alert. But right here is right after he dies the second time. He dies the second time and truly becomes the Crow or whatever. This is after he gets up, because he wasn't healing. You see the hole in his gut right there. He wasn't healing. He went back. He traded his soul for hers or whatever. So if he saves her, if he kills that guy, she gets to live, but he still has to die or whatever, or stay dead. Right there, he's like pumped or something. I don't know if it's a reshoot. I don't know if he's pumped. I don't know if, like, it's reshooting, he gained more muscle. I don't know what's going on there. Pay attention to that scene. He dies in a tub. Okay? If you say it, he dies in a tub. When he gets up, it's like, wait a minute. Scarlo noticed it. She said it in the theater. She said it out loud to me. She was like, doesn't he look bigger now? I was like, yeah, he does.
Not with Eric Draven, as you might expect, considering he's supposed to be the protagonist of the movie, but with Shelley, future corpse and revenge motivation. In this case, however, she's a drug-addicted former prostitute. Yeah, quite the catch. I don't think I'd be coming back from the dead for this girl. Anyway, whatever. Shelley's forced to go on the run from a local crime lord named...
Yeah, you never get to see them form a true loving bond. Like in the original, they're about to get married. Okay? They're already engaged. They're about to get married. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is like two psychos that meet in a rehabilitation clinic, and it doesn't work.
Vincent, after one of her friends sends an incriminating video to her. One of Vincent's men is after her, so she employs some big brain thinking and bumps into a pair of cops so that she can get arrested for drug possession. Now, call me crazy here, but couldn't you have just told them what was happening and asked for help? I mean, generally cops tend to be pretty sympathetic to young women that claim they're being stalked by some crazy mobster guy. Nah, whatever. So Shelley gets sent to a rehab centre, which for some reason allows male and female inmates to mingle freely together, because that's definitely not going to result in all kinds of assaults and unwanted pregnancies. Are you serious? And that is where she meets her friend Eric, an absolute that gets bullied and victimised by practically everyone in the place. Anyway, when Vincent's right-hand, woman shows up looking for Shelley, they're forced to escape together, because Eric knows exactly how to get out of there, which kind of makes you wonder why he's never escaped before now, but whatever. So they get out and they start a relationship together, and this is where the movie goes from borderline tolerable to completely tedious. The next 30 minutes or so are nothing but a series of excruciating dates and weirdly protracted love scenes between a completely unlikable pussy and a woman with all the charm and appeal of a greasy doner kebab that's been lying on a stone-cold pavement all night. And do not ask me how I know that. We've all done things we're not proud of, okay? Thankfully though, Vincent's goons eventually show up and put the two of them out of my misery, only to get resurrected by this weird arsehole.
It's like, I told you, I didn't like them. I didn't like them as a couple. He eventually grew on me a little, but I did not like them.
Named Kronos, who demands that he kill Vincent. See, it turns out that Vincent made a deal with the devil to live forever, and Kronos isn't too happy about it. So if Eric can kill him, then he'll get Shelley back, and the two of them can live happily ever after. Yay. Now, you might think after all this tedious that it's finally crowing time, but nah, Eric's still a useless pussy who cries all the time. The only difference is that he can't die now, and any injuries heal up within seconds because he's powered by love or something. Jesus, what is this, a Disney movie? Anyway, despite all these supernatural advantages, he still manages to such a degree that even Kronos gives up and tells him to piss off because Shelley's getting sent to hell now. Oh no! Anyway, but then he's like, nah, I'll take her place, and then he comes back again as the actual Crow this time, after about 90 minutes of the kind of blue balling that would make Tatiana look like an absolute amateur.
Yeah, because what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, he becomes the Crow in like the first, 15, 20 minutes of the first movie. And this is like at the end. It doesn't make any sense. Like, wait, what?
Then there's a very long and tedious fight scene, and he eventually kills Vincent because it turns out that an immortal, unkillable demon ninja with superpowers versus a 60-year-old man isn't quite the epic matchup that you think it is. Nope. So Eric gets sent to hell instead, and Shelley gets resurrected on the night that she died, which means none of this ever happens? No. Anyway, that's it. That's the plot for The Crow. You know, I'm struggling to think of any remake that missed the point of the original quite as spectacularly as this movie. The 1994 original was a dark, gothic, urban fairy tale centered around a tragic protagonist driven by his quest for revenge beyond the grave. There was a kind of haunting beauty to be found in the style.
You know what's something I didn't notice as a kid when I saw it? I've only, I don't know, maybe I've seen it a handful of times, maybe 5 times over the years. I don't know the last time that I watched it, but I noticed this time, I was like, he wakes up out of the grave and, it's like he has amnesia. He doesn't know what the hell is going on, who he is, whatever, but he's guided by the Crow. And the Crow, but speaking of that, the Crow is really guiding him in the first movie. He flies in with him. He flies out with him. You know what I mean? It's not like that with this one. And there's a certain point where a crow fuses with him in the new one, flies into his back or whatever. Anyway, so, but I didn't notice, I don't know why I didn't notice this when I was younger, but I was like, oh, look at that. He's literally, everything he's touching is bringing all of his memories back, from his cat to pictures and everything. I think when I was younger, I just saw it and it was just like, okay, he's looking at things and remembering. I'm like, no, this is like giving him all of his memories back. You know what I mean? And he can touch, he touches the cop, and then he realizes that the cop was with him and saw all of Shelley's pain, and he stayed with her, and yeah, anyway.
Dilapidated
First one's better.
He lived in. There was a bittersweet undertone to Eric's violent quest for vengeance, underscored by little moments of humanity and kindness, and the tentative relationships he tried to form along the way, knowing that they could never last.
By the way he acts in this, the way that Brandon Lee acts, I knew white dudes like this in high school. They had a weird, quirky sense of humor. Like, if you see the way he acts, like even like when he goes to see the cop and he goes in his refrigerator and he takes the top off the beer, gives him like just all that weird way he. I know guys like this. Kind of hit home more for me. I was like, Jesus Christ, I knew dudes like this in high school.
And the script showed you just enough to let you understand his supernatural nature, but restrained enough to hold back and keep a lot of things ambiguous and mysterious. It was actually a very thoughtful, well-balanced and well-made movie that was way ahead of its time, and aside from some janky visual effects, still holds up pretty well even today. Yeah. The remake, on the other hand, is just a grimy, violent, depressingly bleak and empty exercise.
Scarlett was like when he gets shot in the hand, and she's like, oh my God, that looks so fake. Or no, when he got shot in the chest, when the pawn shop owner shot him in the chest, she was like, oh my God, that looks so fake. I was like, yeah, I know. It's 94.
Size and stupidity. There's no soul to this film and no point to it. It feels like a movie made to order, assembled from stock ingredients to retain the IP rights or fill a release quota, instead of some passion project that anyone was particularly driven to make. The decision to focus so much of the narrative on Shelley and Eric's relationship is probably the first and biggest misstep, but it's definitely not the last. Shelley was never really important as a character in the original movie. In fact, she was already dead when the film opens, and we only really get to see her in a couple of brief flashbacks. And you know what? That's perfect for a film like The Crow, because it's Eric's love for Shelley and his quest for revenge that drives the narrative, rather than Shelley as an actual person. She's a symbol for doomed love, lost innocence, and missed opportunities. The Shelley in this movie...
I don't think one damn crow lands on his shoulder in the new movie. Which I'm like, that's badassery right there. Badassery, slow motion walk, long, wet, black hair, and a crow landing on your shoulder. Like, I don't think it happens at all. He's walking and you see the crows flying, but...
Though it's kind of overbearing and annoying, she always takes...
I think he actually has almost like a Batman Begins moment, too, with the crows when they're all flying around.
The lead in every situation, while Eric follows her like a lost puppy. She spouts the kind of cringe dialogue that feels like it was written by an edgy 13-year-old Tumblr author, and having her played by... R&B singer who's never acted in anything before was a bold choice, Cotton. It just didn't pay off for anyone, though. Eric, on the other hand, comes across as a complete who spends most of the movie crying and sulking, and he's played by a horribly miscast Bill Skarsgård. I mean, Brandon Lee was always going to be a tough act to follow, and it's not like Skarsgård is a bad actor generally, but he feels lost in a role that doesn't seem to know what it wants from him.
You know what she looks like to me? She reminds me of her. The chick that played in Thin Line Between Love and Hate with Martin. Look that up. She looks like her. If I found out that was her daughter or she was related to her, I'd believe it.
He's got no chemistry with Shelley. He kind of meanders through the bulk of the movie like he's ashamed to be there, and he only really seems to come alive during the fight scenes. Yeah, the movie's definitely gory and violent, which is always nice to see, but it feels perfunctory instead of meaningful. There's no emotional release as Eric takes revenge on the people who destroyed his life. It's just a guy going through some highly choreographed action scenes because he can. Danny Huston is another talented actor delivering another adequate performance in a role that doesn't really deserve him. Michael Wincott's top dollar from the original movie was a brilliant antagonist, menacing and eloquent and cool, but Vincent just feels bland and forgettable by comparison. Ultimately, the question I keep asking...
I think we broke her.
myself about The Crow is, why was this movie even made? Who was it made for? And what did they even expect to get from it? The Brandon Lee movie was about as good as a film like this is ever going to get. You're not going to improve on it, and you're not going to add a different perspective by rehashing the same story again, so why bother? I don't know, and I don't care. If you really want to revisit the story of Eric Draven, then go and watch the 1994 version and pretend that this pile of shit never existed. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Put more anger into it this time. I think I said something about one of them. It was like, it sounded like he lost it for it. He didn't have no energy to say it. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is, y'all. You know, get over to Drinker and subscribe. Tell them Tyrone Magnus sent you. And if you want to see this movie, go ahead and see it. I mean, you know, it's up to you. But I think most of you are going to be disappointed. 10 million subscribers. Woo!